Hello, friends. My name is Nickel, and today I'm going to tell you a story that will make you think. So let's start. The year was 1944. In the middle of war-torn Saigon, Vietnam, a child was born who would later become one of the most feared and mysterious criminals in modern history, Charles Sobhraj. At birth, his life already carried the seeds of rejection and anger. Charles was born to an Indian father and a Vietnamese mother, but his father never truly accepted him. The absence of love and belonging during childhood left a deep scar inside his mind. While other children searched for affection and security, Charles slowly began developing feelings of resentment toward the world around him. His mother later married a French army officer, and Charles moved with them to France. From the outside, France looked like a land of opportunity and a fresh beginning. But for Charles, it became the place where his dark personality slowly started shaping. As a teenager, he often felt isolated and unwanted. He struggled to fit into society and soon became attracted to crime. At first, the crimes were small, stealing cars, pickpocketing, and burglary. But even during those early years, police officers noticed something unusual about him. Charles was different from ordinary criminals. He was calm, charming, intelligent, and extremely manipulative. Whenever he was arrested, he spoke so confidently that even prison guards and officials sometimes trusted him. He understood human psychology better than most people. He knew exactly what to say, how to behave, and how to gain sympathy. In France, he spent time in and out of prison multiple times, but jail did not scare him. Instead, it became a training ground where he learned how to deceive people more effectively. He observed criminals, studied police behavior, and mastered the art of manipulation. People who met Charles often described him as polite, sophisticated, and strangely magnetic. He dressed well, spoke smoothly, and could make strangers trust him within minutes. Underneath that charming personality, however, hid a cold and calculating mind. By the early 1970s, a new travel movement had become popular among Western youth. It was called the Hippie Trail. Thousands of young travelers from Europe and America began journeying across Asia in search of spirituality, freedom, adventure, and peace. Countries like India, Thailand, and Nepal became major stops on this route. Many of these tourists were young, inexperienced, and far away from home. To Charles, they became perfect targets. He realized something terrifying. Foreign travelers often carried cash, passports, and valuables, but nobody around them truly knew who they were. If one tourist disappeared in a foreign country, it could take weeks or even months before anyone noticed. Charles began moving across Asian countries using fake identities and stolen passports. Sometimes he pretended to be a gem dealer. Other times he acted like a wealthy businessman or a helpful traveler. His confidence made people believe every lie he told. He would befriend tourists in cafes, hotels, and beaches. He smiled easily, offered help, shared food, and spoke kindly. Many travelers thought they had met a generous and educated man. They had no idea they were standing next to a predator. Because of his ability to escape danger repeatedly, Charles soon earned a frightening nickname, the Serpent. Like a snake, he was slippery, patient, and deadly. Police officers across multiple countries became frustrated with him. Even after arrests, Charles often managed to escape using clever tricks. Sometimes he pretended to be sick. Sometimes he manipulated guards into trusting him.
In several cases, authorities didn't even realize he had escaped until hours later. His mind worked several steps ahead of everyone else. And this was only the beginning. As the hippie trail continued growing, more travelers unknowingly walked into the path of a man who would later become one of the world's most infamous criminals. In the next part, Charles Sobhraj's crimes begin to grow darker as police across Asia start discovering mysterious disappearances connected to a charming foreign traveler nobody could catch.
By the mid-1970s, fear had started spreading quietly across Southeast Asia. Tourists traveling through Thailand, Nepal, and India began disappearing under mysterious circumstances. At first, nobody connected the cases together. Young backpackers often traveled alone, changed plans suddenly, and stayed out of contact with their families for weeks. But then, something horrifying happened on the beaches of Pattaya, Thailand. Several bodies of young women were discovered near the coastline. Many of the victims were wearing bikinis, and some bodies showed signs of burning or violent assault. The shocking discoveries terrified both locals and foreign travelers. Soon, whispers began spreading among investigators. A dangerous foreign man was targeting tourists. That man was Charles Sobhraj, and this was the moment when the media gave him the terrifying nickname, the Bikini Killer. Unlike ordinary criminals, Charles rarely used direct violence in the beginning. His real weapon was trust. He carefully selected lonely travelers, especially young tourists who were far away from home and unfamiliar with the countries they were visiting. He approached them politely, often acting like a friendly businessman or experienced traveler. Sometimes he offered food, sometimes he offered shelter, sometimes he pretended to help sick tourists by giving them medicine. But the medicine often contained drug mixtures or poison. Victims would suddenly become weak, dizzy, or unconscious. Charles then took complete control of the situation. Once the tourists were helpless, he took them of their money, jewelry, passports, and personal belongings. In many cases, the victims never survived. Investigators later discovered that Charles planned everything with extreme precision. He understood that a stolen passport was more valuable than cash. After killing or incapacitating his victims, he frequently used their passports to travel internationally. This made him almost impossible to track. One day he appeared in Thailand. Then, suddenly he was seen in Nepal. After that, he vanished into India or Malaysia using another identity. Police departments across Asia struggled to cooperate with each other during that time. Communication systems were slow, international databases were limited, and border security was far weaker than today. Charles used these weaknesses perfectly. Every new country became another hiding place. Every stolen passport became another disguise. But Charles did not work alone. During this dark period of his life, a young Canadian woman named Marie-Andrée Leclerc entered his world. Marie-Andrée came from Quebec, Canada. She was described as quiet, religious, and deeply emotional. When she met Charles, she became completely fascinated by him. Charles appeared sophisticated, intelligent, confident, and worldly, everything that seemed exciting and mysterious. Like many others, she failed to see the monster hiding behind the charm. Over time, Marie-Andrée fell deeply in love with him. Charles manipulated her emotionally and slowly pulled her into his criminal activities. She traveled with him across Asian countries and became one of his closest companions.
According to investigators, she often helped gain the trust of victims. Her calm and innocent appearance made tourists feel safe around the group. Many travelers believed they had met friendly backpackers. In reality, they had stepped into a deadly trap. Charles controlled the people around him with frightening skill. He knew how to exploit emotions, fear, loyalty, and love. Some people later claimed that being around him felt almost hypnotic. Even when police suspicion increased, Charles remained unusually calm. That calmness made him even more dangerous. As dead bodies continued appearing in different countries, international investigators slowly started noticing patterns. Similar victims, similar methods, similar disappearances. A dark shadow was moving across Asia, and behind it stood a smiling man who always seemed to disappear before the police arrived. In the next part, investigators finally begin connecting the murders across countries, and Charles Sobhraj's growing confidence pushes him towards even riskier crimes.
By the mid-1970s, Charles Sobhraj had already become one of the most wanted criminals across Asia. His crimes had spread fear from Thailand to Nepal, and now his journey brought him to India. At that time, India was one of the biggest stops on the famous hippie trail. Thousands of foreign tourists arrived every year, searching for spirituality, adventure, and freedom. Cities like Delhi, Goa, and Kathmandu were full of backpackers traveling on small budgets. For Charles, it was the perfect hunting ground. Using fake identities and stolen passports, he blended easily among international travelers. He stayed in hotels, guest houses, and tourist areas, pretending to be a wealthy gem dealer or an experienced traveler helping newcomers. But behind the friendly smile, he continued targeting innocent tourists. According to investigators, Charles and his associates drugged travelers, robbed them, and in several cases were linked to murders. He carefully manipulated people before attacking them, which made him extremely difficult to catch. However, in 1976, his luck finally began to crack. In Delhi, Charles allegedly attempted to poison a large group of French tourists staying at a hotel. The plan followed his usual method. He offered tablets and claimed they were medicine for stomach problems and travel sickness. But this time, something went wrong. The tourists became suspicious when several people suddenly fell ill at the same time. Chaos spread through the hotel as victims started vomiting and collapsing. Authorities were called immediately. For the first time in years, Charles failed to escape quickly enough. Indian police arrested him in 1976, bringing an end to his long run across Asia. He was sent to the infamous Tihar jail, one of India's largest prisons. Most people believed his criminal empire had finally ended. But Charles was not like ordinary prisoners. Even inside prison walls, he remained calm, confident, and manipulative. Over time, he reportedly developed connections inside the prison system. Using charm, money, and influence, he managed to gain unusual privileges. Reports about his life in prison shocked many people later. Unlike normal inmates, Charles allegedly lived comfortably, received special treatment, and built relationships with prison staff. Some accounts even described how he entertained visitors, cooked food, and behaved almost like a powerful businessman rather than a prisoner. Tihar jail became less like a punishment and more like a headquarters. But another problem soon began haunting him. Charles knew that once his prison sentence in India ended, there was a strong possibility he would be extradited to Thailand. Authorities there still wanted him for multiple murders connected to the Bikini killer case. And during that period, Thailand could impose the death penalty for serious crimes. Charles understood something terrifying. If he left India, he might never survive. So he created another calculated plan, one of the boldest prison escape plots in modern criminal history. In 1986, as his release date approached, Charles organized a birthday celebration inside Tihar jail. A birthday party inside prison did not appear suspicious because Charles had already earned unusual trust and influence among certain guards and inmates. Sweets and food were distributed during the celebration, but according to reports, the sweets had been mixed with sedative drugs. One by one, prison guards began losing consciousness. The entire situation turned into chaos, and in the middle of that confusion, Charles Sobhraj escaped from Tihar jail. News of the escape exploded across India. Newspapers described it as a massive humiliation for prison authorities. People could not believe that one of the world's most notorious criminals had escaped using drugged sweets during his own birthday party. But the most shocking part came later. Many investigators believed Charles never intended to remain free forever. His real goal was different. He wanted to be captured again inside India. By escaping and getting caught later, he could receive additional prison time in India. That extra sentence would delay any possible extradition to Thailand until the murder charges there became legally weaker over time. It was a gamble based entirely on patience and manipulation. And incredibly, the plan worked. After some time on the run, Charles was finally captured in Goa. Instead of facing Thailand immediately, he returned to Indian prison with an extended sentence, exactly what he wanted from the beginning. Once again, the Serpent had managed to outplay the system. In the next part, Charles Sobhraj's life takes another dramatic turn as journalists, filmmakers, and investigators begin uncovering the full scale of his crimes, turning him into one of the most infamous criminal masterminds in the world.
For most criminals, prison is a place of silence, fear, and disappearance from the public eye. But Charles Sobhraj was different. Even behind bars, he knew how to keep the world watching him. Charles loved publicity. He understood that fear and mystery made him powerful, and he carefully built an image around himself. While serving time in Indian prisons, he gave interviews to journalists, posed confidently for cameras, and reportedly charged large amounts of money for exclusive conversations. Reporters from different countries became fascinated by him. Who was this calm, intelligent criminal who could manipulate police forces across Asia? How had he escaped prisons, stolen identities, and vanished so many times? And why did people continue trusting him despite his terrifying reputation? The media turned Charles into an international obsession. Newspapers published stories about the Serpent and the Bikini killer. Writers started researching his crimes in detail. Books were written about his life, his manipulative personality, and the mysterious deaths linked to him across Southeast Asia. Over time, filmmakers also became interested in his story. His life seemed almost unbelievable, full of fake passports, luxury hotels, poisonings, prison escapes, and international manhunts. But behind all the media attention were real victims and shattered families whose lives had been destroyed forever. In 1997, after spending many years in Indian prison, Charles was finally released. By then, he was older, slower, and already infamous worldwide. After his release, he returned to France. Surprisingly, his life there looked almost normal on the surface. Instead of hiding from attention, Charles openly interacted with journalists and documentary makers. He attended interviews, discussed his criminal past, and behaved like a man who had already escaped justice. Some people even treated him like a strange celebrity rather than a convicted criminal. To the public, he appeared calm, sophisticated, and intelligent, the same image he had used to manipulate people throughout his life. Many believed his criminal days were over. People assumed the Serpent had finally retired. But in 2003, Charles made a shocking decision that nobody fully understood. He returned to Nepal. It was an incredibly risky move because Nepalese authorities still wanted him for the murders of 2 tourists in 1975. For years, he had avoided the country carefully. Returning there placed him directly in danger of arrest. Yet Charles walked openly through Kathmandu as if nothing could happen to him. Some investigators later believed that his overconfidence had finally become his weakness. One day, a journalist reportedly recognized Charles inside a casino in Kathmandu. The news spread quickly, and Nepalese police moved fast before he could disappear again. This time, there was no dramatic escape. No fake identity saved him. No manipulation worked. Nepal police arrested Charles in 2003. The arrest shocked international media because many people believed he would never be caught permanently. After decades of escaping prisons and avoiding authorities across countries, the Serpent had finally run out of luck. The Nepalese court later convicted him in connection with the 1975 murders and sentenced him to life imprisonment. Even during the trial and imprisonment, Charles continued trying to challenge the legal system. He filed appeals, gave statements, and attempted to fight the verdict through legal loopholes. But Nepal was different. This time, the system held him. Years passed, and the once feared criminal mastermind grew old behind prison walls. The man who had once traveled freely across Asia using stolen identities now lived inside a confined cell under constant watch. For decades, Charles Sobhraj had survived through manipulation, charm, and calculated deception, but every escape eventually reaches an end. And for the Serpent, Nepal became the final chapter of a dark and terrifying story that had haunted multiple countries for generations.
As the years passed inside a Nepali prison, Charles Sobhraj slowly transformed from an international fugitive into an aging man surrounded by memories of crime, manipulation, and controversy. But even in prison, Charles continued attracting attention. His name still fascinated journalists, filmmakers, and the public. People remained curious about the man who had once terrified travelers across Asia and escaped prisons using charm and intelligence. Then came another shocking twist in his life. While imprisoned in Nepal, Charles reportedly developed a relationship with Nihita Biswas, the young daughter of one of his lawyers. The relationship immediately created controversy because of their huge age difference. Charles was around 64 years old. Nihita was in her early 20s. News channels, newspapers, and international media began discussing the unusual relationship non-stop. Cameras followed every court appearance and interview connected to the case. Some people believed the relationship was genuine, while others argued that Charles was once again using his charm and manipulative personality to stay relevant in public attention. Despite the controversy, reports claimed that the two married while Charles was still in prison. Even after decades behind bars, the Serpent had once again managed to place himself at the center of global headlines. But by this time, age had started weakening him physically. The once calculated and energetic criminal was no longer the same man who had traveled freely across Asia with stolen passports. Prison life and growing health problems slowly affected him. Charles began suffering from serious medical issues, including heart-related complications. His condition reportedly became severe enough that he underwent open heart surgery while imprisoned in Nepal. Following the surgery, his legal team repeatedly appealed for his release on humanitarian and medical grounds. They argued that his age and declining health made continued imprisonment dangerous. For years, Charles attempted to use legal arguments and human rights concerns to secure freedom. Some people opposed the idea strongly, believing that a man connected to so many deaths did not deserve sympathy. Others argued that international legal standards required humane treatment for elderly prisoners. The debate continued for a long time. Finally, in December 2022, Nepal's Supreme Court ordered his release, considering factors such as his advanced age, time already spent in prison, and deteriorating health. The decision immediately became international news. After his release, Charles was quickly deported from Nepal and sent back to France. And just like that, the man once called the Bikini Killer walked out of prison after spending nearly 2 decades in Nepalese custody. Today, Charles Sobhraj lives in France, but his reputation continues to follow him everywhere. What disturbed many investigators and journalists most was that Charles rarely showed genuine remorse for the crimes connected to him. In interviews over the years, he often appeared calm, detached, and emotionally unaffected by the suffering surrounding his name. To some people, he became a symbol of manipulation and psychological deception. To others, he remained one of the most dangerous con men and serial killers of the 20th century. His story inspired documentaries, books, articles, and television dramas across the world because it combined fear, intelligence, charm, and cruelty in a way that almost seemed fictional. But the victims were real, the destroyed families were real, and the fear he created across multiple countries was real too. The story of Charles Sobhraj serves as a reminder that evil does not always appear frightening on the surface. Sometimes it speaks politely, smiles confidently, and earns trust before it reveals its true face. For decades, the Serpent escaped prisons, crossed borders, and deceived authorities. But in the end, time caught up with him. And no matter how clever a criminal may be, the shadow of justice eventually follows. If you liked the story, please like and subscribe to hear more such stories.